I never imagined I'd be writing this. My name is David, and for 8 years, I served as a soldier. War had taken its toll, but nothing could have prepared me for November 7, 2024. That day changed everything. One moment, I was patrolling a familiar road with my unit. The next, an explosion tore through the air, and everything went black. What I saw after what Jesus revealed to me was something I can't keep to myself. I died that day, and for a brief moment, I crossed into another world. The morning of November 7, 2024 began like any other. My unit was stationed in a conflict zone, tasked with routine patrols. The air was thick with tension, but we'd done this countless times before. I was used to the weight of my gear, the feel of my rifle, the constant awareness of danger. We moved in formation, scanning our surroundings with precision. The streets were quiet, too quiet. In war zones, silence is rarely a good sign. Something felt off, but I pushed the thought aside. My focus had to be on my team. I remember glancing at my watch. It was just past noon. The sun beat down on us, sweat dripping down my temple as I tightened my grip on my rifle. My buddy, Sergeant Miller, walked beside me, his eyes sharp. "You feel that?" he muttered. I nodded. Something was wrong. Then it happened. A deafening explosion ripped through the air. The ground shook violently, and for a split second, everything moved in slow motion. The blast came from our left, a roadside bomb buried beneath the dirt. The force sent me flying backward. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I hit the ground hard, pain exploding through my body. My chest felt crushed, my limbs numb. I could hear distant shouts, the chaos of my team scrambling to respond. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't obey. A strange detachment crept over me, as if I were slipping away. Then, everything faded to black. I wasn't in pain anymore. I wasn't afraid. It was like stepping out of one reality and into another. That was the moment my journey truly began. At first, there was nothing, just darkness, complete and absolute. I expected fear, panic, but instead there was stillness. It wasn't like being unconscious. I was fully aware, but in a place that shouldn't exist. Then, a faint glow appeared in the distance. It wasn't light as we understand it. It was alive, pulsing, calling to me. I felt an unseen force pulling me toward it, gentle but unyielding. I wasn't walking or floating. I was simply moving, drawn towards something greater than myself. The darkness around me began to shift, as if peeling away. Shapes emerged, swirling in the distance, forming landscapes that didn't belong to Earth. A strange sense of knowing settled over me. This wasn't a dream. I wasn't imagining this. I had died, but my soul was very much alive. I looked down at my hands, but they weren't the same. My body was there, but it wasn't flesh and blood. It was lighter, radiant, almost transparent. The weight I had carried in life, my burdens, my pain, my fear was gone. Then I heard it, a voice, strong yet gentle, commanding yet full of love. "David." My entire being trembled at the sound. This wasn't just any voice. It carried power beyond anything I had ever known. It was the kind of voice that could create worlds, that could speak existence into being. And then I saw him. Before I saw Jesus, I saw myself, my physical body, broken and bloodied, lying on the ground. My teammates were around me, desperately trying to save me. I could see Sergeant Miller pressing his hands against my chest, shouting my name. The medic worked quickly, but I could hear the urgency in his voice. "We're losing him," someone yelled. I should have felt something: pain, panic, sadness, but all I felt was peace. It was surreal, watching myself from above, detached from everything I once knew. I wanted to tell them I was okay, that they didn't need to fight so hard to bring me back, but of course, they couldn't hear me. Then I noticed something else. A figure stood beside me, watching. He wasn't one of my teammates. He wasn't even human in the way we understand it. He radiated light, warmth, something pure and indescribable. His presence filled the space, pushing out every shadow, every doubt. I knew who he was before he even spoke. Jesus. I wanted to fall to my knees, to worship, to cry, but I wasn't in control. He simply looked at me, and in that moment, I felt everything: love, power, understanding. It was like being completely exposed yet completely accepted. Every mistake I had ever made, every sin, every doubt, I knew he saw it all, but his love for me did not change. Then we will not take it. They were dragged away, their fate unknown. I turned to Jesus, my heart breaking. Lord, why does it have to be this way? Because the enemy demands control, he answered. And those who refuse to bow will always be hated. The vision changed again. Now I was looking at a massive gathering, a stadium filled with people. A man stood at the center, addressing the crowd. He wasn't a politician or a military leader. He was something more. He spoke with charisma, charm, and undeniable authority. This new era has brought us peace, unity, and equality, he declared. No more poverty, no more war. We have evolved beyond the old ways. The future is here. The crowd cheered wildly, but I saw the truth behind his words. This was not peace. This was absolute control. Screens around the stadium showed a single global currency, a single governing body, a single belief system. Everything had been unified under one rule. I noticed something else: the people all had the implant. Every single one of them. And then I saw what was hidden in the spiritual realm. Behind this leader, dark figures loomed. They were not human. They were something else, something demonic. And they whispered into his ear as he spoke, guiding him, feeding him words that would lead billions into bondage. Then the leader smiled and said, "There's only one step left for complete unity. All who resist must be removed." The stadium erupted in applause. My heart pounded. Lord, what happens to those who refuse? Jesus looked at me, sadness in his eyes. They will be hunted. I saw how the final step unfolded. The world fully embraced the system. Every country, every government, every institution was linked together under one rule. The implant was no longer optional. It was law. People lined up willingly to receive the final upgrade. The device that had started as a convenience was now something more. It was a mark, a permanent alteration to their very being. I watched in horror as people stepped forward, one by one, placing their hands into a scanner. A blue light flashed, and their implant merged with their bodies in a way that could never be undone. And in the spiritual realm, I saw what they could not see. As the implant activated, a dark force entered them. It was subtle at first, a slight shift in their demeanor, but soon I saw their eyes change. Their expressions became vacant, hollow, lifeless. They could still speak, still move, still pray, but their connection to God was gone. Jesus turned to me and said, "This is the true danger. The mark does not just change what people can buy or sell, it changes who they are. It corrupts the image of God within them." I fell to my knees, shaking. Lord, can they be saved? Jesus' face was solemn. Once they accept it willingly, they are no longer mine. Tears filled my eyes. Then how do we warn them? Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder. You tell them now, before it begins. And just like that, the vision ended. The remnant who will shine in darkness, 500 words. The vision shifted again. I found myself standing in a hidden place, far away from the cities and the controlled world. It was a small community, deep in the wilderness, where the last of the faithful had gathered. These were the ones who had refused the implant, who had chosen to trust in Jesus alone. They had no government ID, no access to banks, no connection to the world system. But what they did have was faith, unity, and supernatural protection. I watched as they prayed together, their voices rising in unshaken trust. They had nothing, yet they radiated peace and joy unlike anything I had seen in the controlled cities. Jesus stood beside me, watching them with love. "These are my faithful ones," he said. "They have given up the world, but they have gained eternity." I saw how they survived. Food appeared where there should have been none. Water flowed from dry ground. When storms raged, their shelter stood firm. When sickness came, They were healed. It was as if the miracles of the Bible had come alive again. But then I saw something even more incredible. A woman held out a loaf of bread to a stranger, a man who had once mocked her for her faith. He had taken the implant, but now something in him was fighting back against its control. "I don't understand," he said, his voice shaking. "I feel like I've lost something, but I don't know what." The woman smiled. "You still have a choice." She placed the Bible in his hands, and I saw something astonishing. The darkness in his spirit wavered. Jesus turned to me. "Some who receive the mark will still seek me. Some will fight to break free. My mercy will not be denied to those who truly repent." Hope filled my heart. Not all were lost. The vision began to fade. The light of heaven dimmed, and I felt a force pulling me backward, back toward the world I had left behind. "No, Lord," I cried. "I don't want to leave." Jesus smiled, but his expression was firm. "You must go back." Then the world around us shifted again, and I saw images flashing before my eyes, a digital ID system, new laws mandating it, churches divided over its morality. People accepted it willingly, even those who once spoke against such things. The deception was so subtle, so carefully introduced, that even Christians didn't recognize the danger. Then I saw what happened next. The vision continued. The year was still 2025, but now the world had changed even more. Suddenly, the convenience of the technology was no longer optional. News reports flashed across screens, talking about economic collapse, security threats, and instability. Governments around the world were implementing a solution. The implant that had once been voluntary was now required. First for travel, then for banking, then for healthcare. I saw families arguing, splitting apart as some refused to comply while others insisted it was just technology. Churches debated its use. Many pastors encouraged their members to take it, assuring them it was not the mark of the beast, but simply a tool for a new society. Jesus turned to me, his face filled with sorrow. "They do not see," he said. "They do not understand that this is only the beginning." I wanted to scream, to warn them, but I could do nothing but watch. Then I saw the ones who resisted, small groups, hidden away, living simply but filled with light. They had nothing, yet they had everything. They were cut off from society, but they were not afraid. Jesus pointed to them. "These are my faithful ones. They will be persecuted, but I will provide for them. I will strengthen them, and in the end, they will see my glory." Tears filled my eyes. "Lord, what do I do?" "You tell them, David. You tell them before it is too late." And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, I was back. I found myself standing in the same city, but now the deception had taken hold. The people walked the streets, smiling, laughing, going about their daily routines, but there was something unnatural about it. Their movements were too synchronized, their emotions too controlled. It was as if they were all following a script, unaware that their free will had been stolen. Jesus stood beside me, watching. His face held deep sorrow. "They do not know they are enslaved," he said. I watched as a mother pushed a stroller past us. She looked down at her baby, and I noticed something horrifying. The child had been implanted at birth. "Lord, they're putting it in children?" I asked, my voice shaking. "The enemy targets the young," Jesus replied. "Because if they grow up knowing nothing else, they will never question it." As I continued to watch, I saw how the system controlled every aspect of people's lives. The implant regulated emotions, decisions, even thoughts. If someone became anxious or upset, the device would automatically adjust their mood. If someone tried to resist the system, their access to money, food, and healthcare would be cut off instantly. Then I saw something that sent a chill through me. A man in a business suit stood in a plaza shouting, "This isn't right. We are more than this. We are not machines." Immediately, a silent alarm triggered. The people around him froze for a second, as if receiving some invisible command. Then they turned on him. Without a single word, they grabbed him, dragging him away. No police, no trial, just erased from society. I turned to Jesus, horrified. "They don't even realize they're being controlled." "That is how deception works," he said. It does not come as terror at first, but as convenience, as progress, as safety. And by the time they see the chains, it is too late. I saw another group, the ones who refused to be part of this system. They lived in hidden places, deep in forests, in abandoned buildings, cut off from the world. They had no implants, no digital ID, nothing that connected them to the system. And yet, they were full of light. These were the faithful ones, the ones who saw through the deception. I saw them gathering in secret, reading physical Bibles, whispering prayers, clinging to the Word of God as their only source of strength. They had nothing, but they had everything. Jesus pointed to them and said, "These are my people. They will suffer, but they will not be abandoned." I watched as they helped each other, growing food, sharing supplies, protecting one another. But then I saw the world turn against them. Laws were passed, declaring those who refused the implant as enemies of progress. News broadcasts labeled them threats to public safety. Even former friends and family turned them in, convinced they were dangerous extremists. I saw a young couple caught and taken away. They were brought before a council, given one choice: accept the implant or be exiled. The woman trembled. "If we take it, we lose our souls," she whispered. Her husband took her hand. "David, they need to hear this." Before I could protest again, everything changed. Suddenly, I was back in my broken body. Pain slammed into me like a tidal wave. My chest ached, my lungs burned, and distant voices shouted my name. "He's back!" Someone cried. I gasped, my body jerking on the hospital bed. A doctor stood over me, eyes wide in shock. "He was dead for 7 minutes," he whispered. "This is impossible." But I knew the truth. I had died, and Jesus had sent me back with a message. It has been months since that day, since my return. I've seen the world changing exactly as Jesus showed me. I have watched governments roll out digital identification systems. I have seen churches begin to embrace new technologies. I have seen people push toward a global system of control, thinking it's for their safety. The deception has already begun. That is why I'm sharing this now. Jesus didn't send me back to be silent. He sent me back to warn you. I know that many won't believe me. I don't care. My job isn't to convince everyone, it's to tell the truth. If you are reading this, please listen. Do not be deceived by false promises of safety and convenience. Do not put your trust in governments, technology, or leaders who claim to bring peace at the cost of freedom. Strengthen your faith now. The time is coming when standing firm will cost you everything, but Jesus has promised He will not abandon us. Above all, do not be afraid. Jesus showed me that the faithful will be protected, even as the world falls deeper into deception. Those who trust in Him will shine like lights in the darkness. The battle is coming, but we already know how it ends. Jesus wins, and those who stay faithful will stand with Him in victory. I am sharing this because I have no choice. I saw what is coming. I cannot stay silent. You have been warned. Stay strong. Stay faithful. Stay with Jesus. David. Waking up in the hospital was like being thrown back into a world that no longer felt real. Doctors crowded around me, whispering about how impossible it was that I had survived. My heart had stopped for over 7 minutes, yet here I was, breathing, thinking, and completely aware of what had just happened. But the moment I opened my eyes, I knew I was different. I could still hear Jesus' words echoing in my soul. I could still feel His presence, as if a part of me had never left heaven. But now I was back in a world that felt more distant from God than ever before. A nurse came in, her face filled with disbelief. "You gave us all a scare," she said. "We thought you were gone." I just nodded. How could I explain what had happened? How could I put into words the things I had seen, the warnings I had been given? Over the next few days, I tried to tell people, family, friends, even some of my fellow soldiers. But the reactions were always the same. Some nodded politely but clearly thought I was just hallucinating. Others laughed it off. Even the ones who believed in Jesus struggled to accept what I was saying. "It's just a dream, man," one of my closest friends told me. You went through something traumatic. Your brain was just playing tricks on you. But I knew. I knew it wasn't a dream. And then something even more unsettling happened. I started seeing signs of the deception Jesus had warned me about. I turned on the news and saw reports about governments pushing for new digital IDs. I heard about medical implants being developed to improve human efficiency. I watched churches beginning to embrace technology that blurred the line between faith and control. The world was already heading in the direction Jesus showed me, and I had to do something about it. I realized something terrifying after my return. Most people don't want to hear the truth. I wanted to shout from the rooftops, to warn everyone I could about what was coming. But the more I spoke, the more I saw the resistance. People don't want to believe that the world they trust is leading them into a trap. They want to believe in progress, security, technology, not in an enemy who is slowly, silently tightening his grip on their souls. But I can't stay silent. That's why I'm writing this message now. Because Jesus told me to tell you, the deception is already here. The system of control is already being built. The world is being conditioned to accept something that will change who we are. And the scariest part? Most won't see it until it's too late. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I don't care if they call me a conspiracy theorist. I stood before Jesus Christ. I saw what is coming, and I know what he told me. This isn't about fear, this is about preparation. Jesus told me that those who stay close to him will be protected, but we must be ready. We must know his voice so well that when deception comes, we will recognize it instantly. If you're reading this message is for you. Strengthen your faith now. Stay close to Jesus now. Do not let the world blind you with false promises of safety and progress. The time is short. The final deception is near, and you must choose now whom you will follow. Because once the world makes its final move, there will be no turning back. Choose Jesus. He is the only way. The weight of what I had seen never left me. No matter how much time passed, the vision remained burned into my soul. Every night, I closed my eyes, and I was back there standing beside Jesus, watching the world change. And now I understood the final choice that humanity would have to make. This was never just about technology or control. This was about the soul. People would not be forced into this system with violence at first. No. It would come slowly, subtly, wrapped in convenience. One by one, the world would accept it, not because they were evil, but because they didn't recognize what was happening. Jesus had shown me that there would be a moment, a single, defining moment, where every person would have to choose. Would they cling to the comforts of this world, even at the cost of their spirit? Or would they stand firm in their faith, no matter what it cost them? For many, it would not seem like a hard decision. They would say, it's just a system. It's just an upgrade. It's just a way to make life easier. But Jesus' words still echoed in my heart. What they do not see is that it will change them. It will alter who they are, separating them from me. The deception was not just about tracking, control, or loss of freedom. It was about transformation. The final system would not just mark people physically, it would reshape their very souls, cutting them off from the presence of God. And once they accepted it, they would no longer be able to hear his voice. I fell to my knees, gripping my chest as the realization hit me. This was it, the final test, the ultimate choice. And most would walk into it blind. But then something else happened. Jesus showed me another vision, a glimpse of what lay beyond the darkness. I saw a great multitude, standing in white robes, shining like the sun. They had suffered, yes. They had been rejected by the world, stripped of everything. But now they stood in victory. They were free. And in the center of them all, Jesus stood with open arms. "These are my faithful ones," he said. "They chose me over the world, and now they will reign with me forever." Tears streamed down my face. I had seen the deception. I had seen the suffering. But now I had also seen the reward for those who stood firm. There was nothing to fear. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding. "What do?" I asked. His answer was simple but full of power. Warn them. And that is why I'm writing this. Because the choice is coming, and when it does, you must be ready. Choose Jesus now while you still can.